DJ on bumpy greens. The guy can putt on those things. We got, rocks and shells and you name it out there on these greens. So maybe there's something to that as well. But, DJ at 6,300, not like anybody's going there anyway. So if you landed on him, I'd be just fine. I think Spieth obviously is, a great option up above when you're mixing in, but that 7K range is so small to start with. And you got Spieth, Lowry, Siwoo, all that. But Spieth could end up being a really good pivot off of Siwoo and Cantlay, who are both right there.
Lowry will probably pick up steam too, but what you're saying is that Dustin has big bump experience?
He definitely does. Yes, in more ways than one, as we know.
Pat Mayo experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog, the U.S. Open, Millionaire Maker, DraftKings picks, and preview Alex Blickle, Toe, Tag, and Tambo, Tyler Tambolini, Ship It Nation, FTN Fantasy. On the line with me, Tambo, there are millions of dollars available at the top of these prizes. Are you finally going to win one or what?
I hope so, Pat. If the momentum is anything, it's good. It was 29th at the Masters, and then I ended up having a really good Sunday in Showdown, and then it was, I think, 17th at the PGA Championship. So we're trending in the right direction. We got a $25 this week, and then the big 44 mega, which actually has a nicer structure than usual. So the dream is still alive to be able to win 2 milli makers at the same time with the same lineup. But I don't know if that'll happen, but I'll take just one.
Alex, what I think I'm going to do is use the DFS optimizer at the rabbit hole, project out lineups, see the good lineups, and be like, you know what? I'm going to play all the guys that I like who inevitably miss the cut.
Yeah, that's always the move, isn't it? It's especially at the U.S. Open, anything can happen. So this is like the week to just go all in on your own brand of losers.
Yeah, and usually I do that at the U.S. Open. It does not pay dividends. So I need your guys' help, but if you do need the help from the stats, the data, the simulations, that is all available at betspertsgolf.com right now. $1 for this week. Code US Open at betspertsgolf.com. You'll get that optimizer, the classic simulator, all of the data, all of the filters, the simulation, the head-to-head betting tool that's up there, along with recaps of each of the rounds, along with that data as well. So once again, betspertsgolf.com, code US Open. Smash like while you're here and give me your favorite play from the $5,000 range on DraftKings this week, because Tambo, we usually do see, as Blickle just kind of pointed out, there's a few of these $5,000 guys that if you can find the right ones are going to be super valuable this week.
It is possible. I think of it the other way. I'd rather other people go down their rabbit hole, if you will, pun intended, and be able to try and pick one, because I think the best case scenario is you might not need any of them. As Alex pointed out pre-show, there is like 20 golfers in the 7 to 8, like 7,000 flat to 8,900. So everybody got pushed into the 6K range. There's 50 plus golfers in the 6K range that you can play. And most of my pool will probably be sort of chopping up through that area, as opposed to trying to pick the diamond in the rough down in the 5K range.
Well, maybe there are diamonds in the rough, Alex. Let's do this right now. Let's try to find some guys from the $5,000 range that you think are playable, because I see a few. See a few down here, although I was going to say Chris Kirk, but he's $6,000. I really like Chris Kirk this week. I think Billy Horschel at $5,900, Griot at $58. And then you could even look at Ben James. Ben James had it going on in Canada. He just turned professional. Here he is in this tournament that he and Neil Shipley down here could make some sense.
Yeah, I also see William Mao down here. There are a few names, but I'm kind of more in line with Tambo here, where no matter who you land on in this 5K range, you can say, okay, well, if I just spend 300 more or 500 more or 700 more, you're going to get a significantly better player. And that difference is going to be a lot greater than the difference between like going from Koepka to Xander or Xander to Bryson or something like that, where you're just kind of, I think if you're playing the 5K range, you're probably too confident about the guys that you have up top that could be someone cheaper for just as good of a range of outcomes pretty much. And so I will probably be bottoming out somewhere in the 6K range as well.
Well, let's try to figure that out now then, Tambo. Who do you think is the cheapest player that's going to end up in your lineups? Because the build that I have up right now, which is going to be a pretty chalky build, I think, is probably Ryan Fox at $6,300. But like I said, I like Chris Kirk at $6,000.
Yeah, I think they're fine. Obviously, in my $25 milli maker pool, max to get playing 150. The $5, I have another 150 in that. It's got 50K up top this week. I think like there's a case to be made to mixing both of your points, Pat. Like you said, if Ben James, and I know it's like the name right now, me and Alex, by the way, did have a huge conversation around him last week just to have that discussion on Leverage Lane, because when you're picking a guy like him, I think back to, I think it was Chambers Bay, when, Spieth ended up walking down thinking a playoff was about to happen and then gets the win on the DJ 3-putt. But it was Xander that week, I believe, that was in the 6K flat price point. I think that was the lowest range that week was 6K, and I think Xander was 6K flat at that tournament. It was like the coming out party for him. If you've got Ben James or Jackson Suber, Willie, someone that you have down there that you feel good about and you say, okay, I'm going to do that, I don't see that as like picking a diamond in the rough if you're actually going to commit to that, as opposed to sprinkling it down there. So I don't mind your point, Pat. I like the William Mao, Jackson Suber, Griot, Ben James. I'm okay some of those guys falling in, but I'm not going to be trying to mix up 10 plus guys down there. I'm going to mostly be focused on what you said. I think you had a good call out there. Alex mentioned it pre-show as well with Ryan Fox at 6,300. Looks pretty solid down there in the 6K range.
He does. And I remember playing Ryan Fox at this tournament in 2018. Blickle. I was like, look at this guy. Link specialist. He's going to bomb it out there. I think he shot like plus 17.
A lot of guys did that week. Yeah, that was a really hard week to predict like who's going to do well and who won't. But I love Fox 6,300. He's also, in addition to just being, I think, a pretty solid player in terms of just like pure talent in this range, he's also an outstanding player in the wind and an outstanding player in really difficult scoring conditions, both of which are obviously going to be in play this week at Shinnecock.
Do you think that there's a difference between playing in the wind and playing in generally difficult conditions? Because one would enhance the other, I would guess. But would you see someone who normally doesn't play well in difficult conditions, that if it's difficult and there's wind, maybe it does enhance their game a little bit versus the rest of the field?
Yeah, I mean, there is overlap between like what you have to do in really windy conditions and what you have to do on a really hard golf course, but there are also like totally different skill sets there, where on a hard golf course, it's more about just, can you hit fairways? Can you hit greens? Can you miss in the right spot and get up and down? It's basically just like a big bogey avoidance test. And then in the wind, it's all about, can you control the shape of your shots? Can you flight it down when you need to? Can you flight it right to left when there's a strong left to right wind, and left to right when there's a strong right to left wind? Can you hit it high enough with enough spin when it's downwind to stop the ball? Things of that nature. And then, of course, like one of those skill sets, by the way, is simply, can you identify where the wind is and how strong it's blowing? Otherwise, you get situations like Scotty, yelling at Ted Scott about how I think his quote was like, we can't get the wind wrong. We just can't get the wind wrong. And they got it wrong. That's honestly like, one of the harder things to do when you're playing in wind, but it is a skill, just simply identifying where it is, what it's doing, and then picking the shot that you need to hit as a result.
Tambo, the current wind conditions look pretty outrageous, with Thursday being the worst of it right now from what I see. Is that what you guys are seeing?
Yes, it is. And I think that's the fun part, and when Alex said it earlier of like, play your own losers, basically is what he was saying at this type of tournament. That's just going to add to the variance, right? Because everything that Alex just said, also, I saw an interview yesterday with Fitzpatrick talking about this. And Fitzpatrick, we know, walks around with his little notepad and he's got it all figured out. And honestly, just incredible work ethic. We know this, adding distance, adding different things to his game. And so, former US Open winner, but just noting it, it's like, even if you've got that mindset, even if you've got that's how you work and that's what you do. There was shells and rocks on the green in Michael Kim's post yesterday. There's so many little things that can throw you off here, that even if that's your mindset and that's your game, it doesn't mean it's all going to play out. You still have to execute on top of that. So adding that wind into a patch just makes the variance ramp up even further. So when people are like so gung-ho on certain plays that we get to later, it's going to be a big factor, I think, this week, where that could really affect how this tournament plays out from a DFS perspective.
The Tuckahoe Southampton Wind Tower is what I'm using on windfinder.com. I've already released my article for the week, the big preview. That's completely free. You can find it in my newsletter in the description, Substack Mayo Media. You can find it on X. I published it up there as well. And if you take a look at it right now, there are gusts presumably up to 45 miles per hour at certain points on Thursday, with it rarely dropping below 25 mile per hour gusts, pretty consistent of the mid-teens up through the mid-20s in terms of what we're seeing for the wind just on Thursday. Does that lead you guys to build in sets? Because unlike the Open Championship, where everyone goes off from hole number one, so there are almost like 6 distinct mini pockets throughout the course of the day, Here, guys are going to be going off the front and back. Like, do you think that regardless of what happens, will you allocate a certain amount of lineups to AM players, to PM players, just to hope into somewhat easier conditions?
Yeah, definitely a viable strategy this week. One thing I will say on that though is there's a good chance that when we get the peak wins on Thursday, that they just have to take players off the golf course. Because we were already hearing players say about the 11th green that like if wind conditions are the same as they were in the practice rounds, that the 11th green would be unplayable. I saw some videos of guys chipping uphill and then the ball just turning and rolling all the way back off the greens. And I think the wind conditions were like sustained 20 with gusts to 30 to 35 in that practice round. And so if it's going to get up to 45, I imagine the 11th will be totally unplayable and they'll just have to take players off the course.
No. What they'll do is they'll just let everyone skip the 11th hole. Then they'll create a lineup at the end of the round. Then everyone has to play 11.
Wouldn't that be hilarious? Like shootout style. Remember, guess shootout style.
I don't hate that idea for a trade. We want some like new ideas for the PGA Tour, Tambo. I like this idea. You play 17 holes, then everyone lines up to play one hole. Think about the betting opportunities.
It'd be huge. And just the excitement because everybody has a sweat now, right? They're all thinking about it and it comes down to, it's just like when you get with your buddies out, you get to the first par 3 and it's like, oh, hole in one opportunity, even though no one's got a hole in one in the, in the entire group, or it's like no one's even come close, but you really get excited just to watch those 4 shots if that's your group. So yeah, I would love something new like that. I also thought before, Pat, what about like an eliminator style? Like day 1, everybody that gets to 2 under or better gets to move on. If you don't make that 2 under, like a cut after day 1, you don't play day 2, and then it comes down to it. And then whoever makes the final round, obviously you have to make it tricky enough, but something like an eliminator style, I think would be kind of fun as well too.
I like this idea a lot. I'm not going to lie to you.
Isn't that just the FedEx Cup playoffs?
It's sort of, but we can make it a micro FedEx Cup playoffs. Just put it into one tournament.
Yeah.
And then you have the final day match play. But there we go.
Yeah, they're thinking about it anyway.
Now that you're mentioning match play, I'm in.
Yeah. All right. See, now we're going on. I want to throw up on the screen the rabbit hole. Once again, betspertsgolf.com code US Open in order to get that for $1 this week. I've turned on the difficult and very difficult filters on here right now. I already have them loaded in. So if we see strokes gained total per round in these elements on just difficult and difficult courses, and irrespective of the wind, Blickle, Scotty, Rory, Rahm, 1, 2, 3 on the betting board. Big shocker. Bryson, Henley, Xander. You got Reed. So you have no one really in there outside of Burns and McIntyre, who finished very well at last year's US Open in the $7,000 range, until you get down to, and this name keeps popping up, a guy I bet on last week, Blickle, that really screwed everything that I was doing, is Alex Noren at $6,400.
Yeah, he did the same to me. Corey Connors also did the same to me. And yeah, they both fit this. Connors especially is also a wind specialist, so he's going to have some of my interest again this week, and I might do that to myself all over again. But yeah, it is interesting. Like we just talked about how there's overlap between what it takes to play well in windy conditions, what it takes to play well in really difficult conditions. There are a handful of names who appear on both lists. There are also some who are like really good in difficult conditions, as long as there's no wind whatsoever. And then if there's wind, they just kind of totally lose it. I think you may have just scrolled past him already, but Russell Henley is one of those names. Yeah, so he was up there in difficult conditions, and then you throw some wind in there, and all of a sudden he really kind of loses it. And I think that might be tied to his lack of distance, because one like underrated thought is when it's really, really windy, speed is super helpful, because number one, it means that you can afford to like hit that, low stinger, and you're not losing too much distance. If Henley tries to hit a low stinger off the tee, he's suddenly carrying it 215 instead of his usual like 255. But then the other thing is you have a lot of downwind shots where you need to be able to stop the ball quickly, and he just doesn't create enough speed or spin to do that downwind. And so most of the time you think of like the really windy conditions, the difficult shots being into the wind or crosswinds. The downwind can be really tough if you can't generate speed.
The $6,000 players who are highest rated in this, and this is over the past 2 years, Tambo, Noren, Harris English at 67, who I put the JT Poston curse on. That I kind of, when I mentioned JT Poston a few weeks ago at Memorial, I was like, man, this is a great course for JT Poston. Unfortunately, he sucks now, so I'm not going to play him. I've kind of said the same thing about Harris English this week. Like, couldn't think of kind of like a better U.S. Open style course for Harris English. Just he's kind of crap right now, so I might have to go to him anyway. Noren, English, Connors, Alex Fitzpatrick, Mav McNeely, and Keegan Bradley are the 6 guys in the $6,000 range who typically play these harder courses well. I think Keegan is really interesting because he too comes in an absolute shit form, but it's in the Northeast. Always play Keegan in the Northeast. JP Shaughnessy once told me that.
Yeah, and it's like everywhere becomes the Northeast, right? Then we're just balancing how much and how close it actually is to be a Keegan home game. I will say what's interesting, we were talking pre-show and obviously tomorrow on Leverage Lane, Alex and I go through sort of the chalk build of like the balanced version, but a lot of versions that we've talked through and sort of landed on in pre-show landed on $6,400. So I do think Noren is going to get a little bit of love here. I see Pops already in projections. He makes the popular builds work. So when people land there, I see like, Kitayama and guys like that, but on your numbers there that you have, I do think, Connors, Bradley, Noren, English, and I think you had somebody else there at 60. McNeely was the other one you had there. Those are the guys that close out some of those lineups that are going to be popular regardless of how you start up top. So I think that's somewhat interesting. The most interesting part, though, was back to our original conversation, Pat. No real 5K guys showing up there anywhere, and it doesn't look like you would need them in that example. So if you're building a set based off of that stat set, you're not going to have 5K guys.
So I'm going to release a special newsletter on Tuesday evening going through a lot of these filters on the rabbit hole just to show a few different names, combining everything together. A lot of what I did on the research show, which is already out on the network right now, but to just visualize it just in print form. Sometimes waiting through a 2-hour show isn't necessarily what people want to be doing. I would love to do it. I hope you guys enjoy that too, but I'll try to condense it into a cheat sheet form just so you can see it. The other thing that I want to add to that now is we have difficult and very difficult filters turned on. We go down to wind average. We go to moderate and windy. So at least above 10 miles per hour. So moderate is 10 to 17. Then windy is categorized as 18 plus. So I've already loaded that in. And then we see a few different names pop back up. So the first 5K player is on here, and it's all from Open Championship Experience Tambo. And it is Matthew Jordan who qualified for this tournament. I don't know what to do with guys like this, but I am taking a hardline stance this week that I am putting far more faith in Open Championship history and how people have performed on those style of links courses rather than looking at your typical US Open venue.
Yeah, totally fair. I think from that perspective, one thing I'll say is like, obviously that's the nice thing about the rabbit hole when you brought it up there is you can see all the pertinent details. And the one that stood out to me immediately was obviously sample size. Yeah. 8 rounds. If you get there with Matthew Jordan and you want to run that victory lap, good for you. That's not how I do my stuff, and it's okay. And it'd be awesome because if you win, you win. Doesn't really matter how you got there, but that would be immediately something crossed off versus I like that the other options there I saw had, 39 rounds or 37 rounds and things like that. Again, I get it. They play it more and all that, but that's why that's going to matter so much more to me. And I think that's critical when you're looking at these types of models and stats. The data is important. It's really strong in something like golf, MLB, same way, other sports too. But just to note it, you want to look at these samples. And for me, that's one that stood out. And I like that the other guys that had 30 to 40 rounds, those are valuable.
So I put the minimum rounds required at 16 right now. So that changes it up a little bit, Blickle. So Scotty and Rory end up being 1 and 2. Xander moves up, Rahm moves down 1 spot, but huge jumps from Lowry, Connors, Bradley, Noren, Fleetwood, Rose. Henley is still up there, mind you, and a big bump up for Harris English and Alex Smalley as well. Then all of a sudden, Patrick Cantlay enters the chat.
Surprising a little bit to see Cantlay there, but obviously a really good player. I was doing a lot of this last night in my Discord, and one of the things that I did find is that the sample size for this stuff that you need to hit to really start to get some stable results and some predictive results is 40 rounds. And so what I was doing is instead of trying to find the overlap between windy and difficult conditions, is I was just looking at them separately. But you do see a lot of the same names here. And I think, one of the reasons for that is the skill of playing well in difficult conditions appears to be a lot more stable than the skill of playing well in windy conditions. So when you get that overlap, you're more so just getting another list of who plays well in difficult conditions instead of the actual win signal that you're hoping for. And so I prefer looking at them individually, but I think you still get some cool results there. Like certainly Shane Lowry being suddenly on the list is telling, because he's one of the best players in the world in the wind and has been for years now.
So wind, moderate, and super windy, the big jumpers that we take out difficult conditions. Harry Hall, JJ Spawn, Lowry, Hideki, and Kitayama all get a huge boost up, as does Alex Molly in his 108 rounds over the past 2 years in these conditions, what I thought was kind of funny. Then you got Straka and Goddard. Henley gets bumped down a little bit, but you mentioned like the difference between his difficult and very difficult type courses, Alex, versus his windy conditions. It's that he's worse in the windy conditions versus the difficult, but he's not bad in windy conditions either.
Right. I think he does go down if you get rid of the moderate and just go to the windy. But I could be misremembering that. But yeah, it's one of those things where like we have also seen Henley over the years play really, really well on courses that if you just look at his skill set and the skill sets that do well, they're like, oh, this is a Bombers course. This is a long iron course. And then he shows up and he just plays his own type of game. He hits it short. He gives himself a lot of wedges, even if some of them are to get up and down for par, and he just converts them. Or like, other guys are getting home in 2 on par 5s and, getting to a drivable par 4 green, and he's giving himself wedge shot after wedge shot and hitting them to 3 feet, 8 feet over and over, making the putts. He plays his own game around these courses. He always has a really good game plan, very similar to Matt Fitzpatrick in that way, thinks his way around golf courses. And he plays really, really well on courses where on paper he has no business doing so. And so even if his wind splits are bad, like it doesn't mean he can't play well. He can do it anywhere.
So to your point, if I just sort by 18 mile per hour plus, then it does give me a different set of names here, Tambo. Just 18 mile per hour wins plus. Scotty remains number 1. Lowry hops to number 2 over Rory. Morikawa bumps. Connors stays the same with Hideki, Fox, Colley. Siwoo all of a sudden appears on the list, as do Adam Scott and Ryan Gerard. Patrick Cantlay sticks there. Seb Straka is still up there. Straka, I think, is really interesting at $7,000, because I was trying to think about what the comp courses would be for this. And I mentioned the Open Championship, but especially the Open Championship this year, Tambo. I noticed the last time that they had played there that there was a lot of crossover with PGA National, which I thought was interesting. A Lowry course, a Straka course that it has very few trees. It can be severely wind impacted. And while it doesn't have the massive rough or fescue, if you would hit into presumably where that would be at PGA National, you're simply in the water.
That's correct. Fleetwood knows that. We've seen it live, but also a Sung J M course, Pat. I have to get that in there for the bit. But yeah, the Lowry stuff was the most interesting to me. The fact that, like you said, Straka can tie into that. He's $100 less than Lowry. You can obviously play both. I thought the one that was sticking there the most, though, like that Connors one, stands out because when you look at his price point this week at 6,500, there's Kitayama at 6,500. He was on one of those lists, just to note it, but you've got Hogard just above him, $200 more. English just above $200 more. Smalley, $300 more. And then you drop down to the Norins, the Keegans, all those guys. So I wonder how many people want to play Corey Connors, but at 6,500, it's not like he has to go out and close this thing out and win the tournament. It's just, it could be the last guy into your lineup for all we know. So it's like, that's kind of interesting when I see that. I'd be curious, don't know if you want to do it right now, but to Alex's point that he made, if you switched off the wind stuff and went just to the difficult courses, gave us the 40 round sample. I know that, that's the nice thing about the rabbit hole. You can literally just pin it down that way. I'd be curious to see what that looks like and who sticks when we do the flip side of this.
So just do difficult and very difficult courses.
Is that what you think, Alex? Just blend those separately?
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I think you can get rid of difficult and just do very difficult. I would prefer that, even if you have to go to like last 3 years or last 4 years to get the sample high enough. Just because it's like, essentially what we're doing here is we already know which golfers are the good golfers, which are the bad golfers, which are the great golfers, so on and so forth. We're looking for a very specific skill set here of when conditions are the toughest, when patience is tested, when half the field is complaining that, hey, these conditions are unfair, the USGA took things too far, which are the players who are saying, no, I actually love this? Like Fitzpatrick in his interview, right? When everyone else is breaking mentally, who is staying in it, staying patient, staying confident? And it's a very difficult test because suddenly it's as much of a mental test as it is a physical test. And when you're trying to find such like a unique skill set there, you have to go to the extreme conditions. Because a lot of the difficult rounds, a lot of the rounds that qualify as difficult, like guys weren't actually being tested mentally. It's just a bit of a tough golf course. We want the instances where like in their mind, they're fighting demons and they're fighting the urge to just give up on the round and blame the USGA as opposed to, really sticking it out and battling for those last 6 holes.
So very difficult, loaded in past 3 years. We got some samples up to 44 rounds. Like Bryson's only at 26, mainly because they're not counting live rounds. They're only counting majors inside of this. But it's Scotty, Xander, Rahm, Rory, Morikawa, Henley, Fleetwood, Straka, Bryson, Ludwig, Connors, Cam Smith, Hatton, Burns, Fitzpatrick. And then everyone's favorite guys, Smalley, Cantley, Hideki, Grazerman. That's weird. And then, hey, my guy, Harris English. There he is at $6,700. We'll throw that in. We'll take off very difficult and then go into the extreme wind over the past 3 years as well. And I've added that to a model that I can build out here that we can generate results on very quickly. You can too. BetSportsGolf.com, code US Open. Get it for $1 this week. Scheffler, Rory, Morikawa, Lowry, Connors in these very windy conditions. Colley, who just won. Day, Bobby Mack, Ryan Fox, Mav McNeely, and then you have Bridgman, Straka, Scott, Ludwig, Hideki, Rahm. In these conditions, Alex, do you think it's better to look at strokes gained total or strokes gained T degree where we take putting out of it? Or do you think putting in the wind is a true skill that we should be qualifying here?
I want total for 2 reasons. Number one, like I do think putting in the wind is different. I believe that this split was just the very difficult. I can't remember if wind is still on or not, but
yeah.
Regardless, on really, really difficult courses, you're going to be left with so many like testers for par, the 6 foot or the 8 foot or so. I think we do see a spike in putting's predictive value because now it's not who got lucky and made more 20 footers for birdie. It's who made the par putts that they needed to make, had to make, and should have made. And so you tend to get more predictive signal on these difficult courses from the skill of putting. And so I want strokes gained total.
See, I'm of the other way on this one, especially on these particular set of greens. And this proved itself out in 2018 that, bad putters putted the lights out. Good putters couldn't figure out what was going on. We see this at the Masters. We saw this at Aronimink as well, that sometimes when you get these very challenging greens, it becomes a big neutralizer for the field.
It can be. For what it's worth, I did not see that from 2018, where I actually saw more putting predictive value than usual in 2018. It's been true of every single U.S. Open since 2018, by the way, is putting has been more predictive. And I think what it did in 2018 is it just added variance. So you had some bad putters who gained strokes. You had some really, really good putters who just blew up on the greens and couldn't figure them out. But all in all, it tended to be that the better putters did better and the worst putters did worse. And it was just that there was more randomness around that because those greens were so crazy.
I thought it was funny as well, Tambo, because I was going back and looking at the stats and someone had made mention to me. It's like, well, there's 2 things you need to do here because Brooks did. He was first in approach at the 2018 U.S. Open. And he was 3rd in putting that week. But one of the reasons that he ended up being 3rd in putting because he was a disaster around the greens. He just happened to make a bunch of 20-foot putts.
Yeah, I remember that year was awesome. So that's why I'm excited for it to be back here. This is all U.S. Open's always one of my favorites. I always get made fun of because Pat, you and I both being Canadian, but like U.S. Open is by far one of my favorites. I've got the Masters and U.S. Open above everything else. So I love this event. I love courses like this. And so I think it's going to make for a really good week, but it does make it tricky. And that's why I like going through like you just did and seeing like what are the comparisons. And then obviously we're going to take that and segue it into building lineups based off of those factors. That's where you can really follow the sort of the path of, okay, how does this, if I make this change, okay, now it gets me up to this. And then don't forget Scotty Scheffler's birthday on Sunday to round out the career Grand Slam. You couldn't write a better script. So we got to figure out those Scotty lineups too when we get there.
It's Father's Day weekend this week, right? Or is that next week?
I think it's this week.
Yeah, the 21st. So Sunday is Scotty's birthday and Father's Day. Now he's a 2-time dad. So maybe it's really the Grand Slam, Father's Day, birthday. It'll be the Grand Slam for everything combining for him when he hoists that very aptly named U.S. Open trophy. They couldn't come up with anything for this.
You know what? It's not going to be called the Phil Mickelson Trophy for many reasons.
So when we go back, I've added in strokes gained total from those extreme winds and extremely difficult courses. So I've added it to the model. We can create the model right now. Boom. Click on that. And we just go 50-50 Blickle. That makes sense to you?
Yes, it does.
So we'll call this Mayo Wind Hard. All right. And we'll save that as an expert report. So you can pull that up on the rabbit hole if you'd like and adjust it around a little bit. So we'll see what we get for results here. Scotty, Rory, Colin, Rom, Connors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Straka, Fleetwood, Ludwig, Xander, Bryson for the top 10. Hideki, Scott, Cantlay, Hatton, Henley, top 15. Then Fox, Lowry, Reed, Bobby Mack, Ben Griffin, a name that we have not heard yet. Tambo comes in at number 20. Some of the cheaper guys in here: Smalley, Day, Noren, Matty Schmidt at $6,000, Keegan at 64, Grazerman at 61, and then you have Harris English at 67. Are there any interesting names on that list to you?
Scroll back up for a second. There was one you said there before. You talked about Ben Griffin, but I was going to say the other guy that keeps showing up that we've just mentioned his name and then just not mentioned anything after it was Bobby Mack. Bobby Mack is usually loved in these spots, and I just don't know if at 7K flat, again, like you'd already mentioned Straka there. Now you mentioned, Ben Griffin pops up there. We've talked about Lowry. We haven't mentioned this guy, but I know in the projections, 6,900 Min Woo is a projections spot that people will land on. So I just wonder what this looks like for Bobby Mack, who, kind of just could be in the mix here at 7,000. So I'm interested in Bobby Mack.
So we had a lot of wind last week at the RBC Canadian Open, and the other time before that where it felt like we had extreme wind was actually at the Valero Texas Open, and those are the last 2 times, Blickle, that he's gained on approach. That I comp Bobby Mack to Sam Burns all the time because Bobby Mack's a better driver than Sam Burns. Burns is a better putter, but Bobby's also very good. But their entire week generally tends to hinge on how their approach play goes. And there's a few players like this. I would throw Cam Young into this bucket. Goddard's in that bucket. Wyndham Clark is in that bucket. That if all of a sudden their irons are clicking, they have chances to win.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's the difficulty with the McIntyre decision right now, because his approach play has been really, really bad. It was good. It was decent in Canada. So at least you do have like maybe a sign that it's fixed, but man, it had been really, really rough prior to that. And that included a bunch of events where wind was up. The course was really difficult. Like conditions should have fit his game well, and he still couldn't figure out the iron play. So it's a tough decision for sure.
See, I think that I'm willing to do it with him only because you have this win factor, but you get him back at a venue with shaved off green surfaces around the greens where he can utilize a lot of the creativity that he's done at links courses, Tambo, on the DP World Tour, which I think is going to be important.
100%. And I think that's when we talk about when you build those lineups like that, keep that in mind when you're putting it all together. You mentioned Pat and linked him to a couple other players that you'd be comfortable to put him in there with. You don't have to go completely off the deep end, but because he's 7K, you can make a lot of things work. But if you want to mix him with a couple of those others, like you mentioned, with Burns or whoever else you think fits that sort of narrative or that model, then you'd be able to just stack on top of that the best options, because how many people are even going to start with that? And the other interesting thing I look for a lot, and that's why I like the softer pricing, and typically why I think I've done better at majors when you get the softer pricing, is a lot of people will overthink it. They won't think like that, like we just talked about, on how you can put it together that way. It really comes down to, let's say, Cantlay at 7,300. Very middling results, but good enough on paper to say like, oh, recent form's not that bad. It's kind of very similar. Like I think he was 17th and his last event. Bobby Mack was 15th, hasn't done much before. It's not like Cantlay's having a crazy year or anything, but people just look at price only and go, man, what a silly price. I got to play this guy. And then it's like, there's people that are mentioning Bobby Mack. He's projecting like 2 points less, and he could just fit right in there, and he could end up being 1/3 the ownership of Cantlay. And people are like, oh, I should have just went to Bobby Mack. I knew he was good. I went with the projections, or I went with what everybody else was saying. And it was right there under your nose, just $300 less.
Summer's actually the time of year when I notice bad sleep for me the most, because the days are longer, the kids are running around nonstop, they're staying up later because it's so gloriously bright out throughout the course of the night, and then they tell me, it's not bedtime, it's not dark out, although that logic never applies in the wintertime when it gets 4:30 p.m. dark out. Now, does it, kids? But I'm outside more, I'm playing more golf, and if I don't get a good night's sleep, I feel awful the next day. It's one of the reasons I've been so happy with my Helix mattress. I've now had mine for a couple years, and it's been a massive upgrade from what I was sleeping on before. I fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and I wake up feeling far more recovered. That's the important part. When you're trying to squeeze the most out of your summer, which I have to where I live, it's a pretty big deal to me. What I really like about Helix is they make it easy. Just take their sleep quiz and they'll match you with the mattress that's right for you and your sleep style and preferences. And the summer sale is going on at helixsleep.com right now. So go to helixsleep.com/Mayo for 20% off site-wide. That's helixsleep.com/Mayo for 20% off. Make sure to enter the show name at checkout so that they know we sent you. The Travelers Championship. Now is the time. This is the place. Every star, every round, every shot that makes your heart race as legends walk the fairways. Keegan Bradley, Scotty Scheffler, Tommy Fleetwood, Justin Rose, Cameron Young, Xander Schauffele, Colin Morikawa, and other PGA Tour greats, all battling to be called champion. See the world's best for all 4 days. No cut! You'll feel the pressure before the shot, the roar when it drops. You'll stand close enough to see it all, the intensity, the focus, the moment when everything comes down to mere inches, and where everything makes you part of the moment. It's golf at its best, up close, open to all, and only here. The excitement starts June 24th and runs through June 28th at TPC River Highlands in Cromwell, Connecticut. For tickets and information, visit travelerchampionship.com. Now is the time. This is the place. Let's try to build out a lineup based on what we saw. Now, we have a Scotty build that we already put in. I would expect Scotty to probably end up being the highest owned, especially of the expensive players, Alex. But if we just kind of reel it back a little bit and we want to do our wind and difficult type courses, do we want to start with Scheffler or do we want to save a little bit of money to try to build a more balanced lineup?
Well, we definitely can start with him because we've already seen that like there are a lot of 6K, low 7K guys on that, windy and difficult conditions list. So I would have no issue starting Scotty, and then you just have to find 5 of those guys. I do think one thing we'll run into is we're going to have a decision to make on like, do we trust the guys who are continuously showing up on this list or these lists and if they're not in good form? So we just talked through Bobby Mack. Like I think an even more interesting decision point is Corey Connors because he's at the top of those lists. He's been awful in his last 2 events. Those were also events where it was difficult scoring conditions, at least at the Memorial. A lot of wind at both the Memorial and then in Canada. He didn't do well. So are we trusting who he is or who he has been? Because who he is, over the last 5 years, he's probably the best play on this slate, given how low owned he's going to be and how perfect he is for these conditions. But who he's been is really, really scary to put into your lineup.
I agree, but I think, Tambo, this is something that you need to get off of, especially at the U.S. Open. We see that even your Sung Jae call, that obviously he's not rating out well because he's been brutal for a long time now, but we still seen him pop up at some of these difficult courses randomly in majors too.
Yeah, I'm a big time advocate for this, and usually I'm on the opposite side of this. So it's funny. It's just funny because, like I said, I've done better at these majors, and Alex and I talk about this all the time. But I'm much more of a who have they been? Recent form. I've been against course history for years, making fun of. I mean, course history in 2026 when we're talking about, I always make fun of that joke and that sort of thing. But at majors, it's who they are. And that's what I go by oftentimes. And even again, because it doesn't matter. Like, they'll be chalk. There's 70 guys in the 6K range. They won't all be anything. There'll be 90 to 95% of the field won't have them in their lineups because they'll all be 5 to 10%. And so it's like, that's my point of when you're looking at it, I'm more of who are they? And then Pat, what you talked about, and Alex has done a good job bringing up in the past of like, let's just put them together and hope that they all who they are that week. We saw it at the Masters, or who they could be, I guess is a better way to put it, with like Homa, Spieth, Brooks Koepka, all those guys. It was a tournament that could suit them, or we know why it would suit them and has in the past. And then they sort of all showed up somewhere in that realm, and other people just couldn't get to that. Because like, what? I could never see a world where they finally show up. That's the difference here. So I like playing a guy at Connors, no problem. He popped up.
So for this build, Alex, we have Scheffler in at 14.9, which is a substantial part of your salary cap. Connors, Straka, Lowry, Bobby Mack, JJ Spawn, 0 left over.
This is a really good lineup, yeah. And there are so many variations you could do with this. Like you could take 2 of those guys out and you could put in Fox and somebody else. Or
let's try that. Let's re-import this. Let's play the Scheffler one. Now let's play one without Scheffler. Because we go back and we take a look at that wind list of everything. Like Rory's not that far behind. Neither is Morikawa. Neither is Rahm. So if we just sub in Rory or Rahm, Blickle, for Scotty, which one do you think you would choose?
Can we choose both?
We might be able to. We probably can't. That's probably too much. Let's see. Get rid of Spawn.
I think we'll have to go. I think we'll have to go down into the 6K range a couple more times, but that's not that difficult, right? Like immediately Lowry can become Fox, and then
Fox and Noren.
Exactly. Like it is not hard to do, and I think this is one of the things that the field will do as well, where it's not Scotty or Rory, it's not Scotty or Xander, it's Scotty or a combination of other studs. And so it can be Rory Rahm, or it could also be like a trio of Cam, Xander, and Tommy, or Xander, Tommy, and Oberg, things of that nature, where that's what makes the Scotty decision a little bit tougher. Is if you go Scotty, you have one stud. If you go to the next tier of studs, you can get 2 studs. If you go to the next tier, now you can get 3. I think you can maybe even build a lineup with like 4 of these 9K upper 8K guys, where like you might even be able to start a lineup, Xander, Tommy, Oberg, and Fitzpatrick or something like that, and still have enough money for the last couple spots. So it's just a really interesting build that way, and that's what's going to keep the Scotty ownership in check this week. But yeah, I mean, look at that. Like you can go back to.
You have the same lineup basically. You go Fox. If you could say, if you go Fox, Koiven, Cuss guy. Did you know Cuss picked Koiven to win this week?
Yes, I do, and I knew he was going to do that from our show last week. I love it. I think Koiven's going to be very good. I don't know about can he get it going immediately on one of the toughest golf courses in the toughest conditions with all this pressure, but. I do think he's a really good player, and I think this is one of Tim's smarter moves, where you and Jeff called it out perfectly. Like he's doing this for the credit when he starts winning golf tournaments 2 years from now, so he can say he was the first to call a win in a major. But yeah, I think he's going to be a great player. But as we see here on the screen, like this kind of lineup is really easy to build as well, and this is what's going to keep Scotty's ownership in check. A lot of the time, the Scotty ownership has been kept in check because Scotty lineups as a whole aren't good. Scotty lineups this week are phenomenal. It's just that you can also build other phenomenal lineups with multiple, like really, really good players with tons of win equity all together in one lineup.
So this one, Tambo, is Xander, Tommy, Fitz, Goddard, Fox, and Smalley.
Yeah, I mean, it's Goddard and Smalley need to get swapped to Cowa and Connors and just break the whole model. Like it's exactly what popped in every single thing you saw.
Is that what it is? It's Morikawa and who?
Our guy, Connors.
Oh, Connors. Yeah.
That's what like if you were talking about what we looked at for the last half an hour, this is the lineup basically. And then we didn't talk a lot about Xander, who's got this insane streak of top 15s at US Opens. We've got Fleetwood, Fitzpatrick. They popped. I mean, we talked about Fitzpatrick being able to play through that stuff. And then Cowa was in everything at 8,500. I do think Cowa is going to get for the 8K range, at least it's Fitz and Cowa, but they're going to get steamed a little bit just because of the price points. And when people do land on the balanced bill, that's kind of right where you'll land.
Xander's one of those guys too, who his win splits aren't very good, but his difficult splits are spectacular. And then when you combine them, when you say difficult and windy, guess what? He still looks really, really good. Cause as we kind of talked about, the difficult skill is the dominant skill over playing in wind.
Yeah. You see him here second on very difficult courses, 30th in super windy conditions. Put them together, that makes him 9th in this modeling. And someone like we didn't really get to in any of these lineups. Like there's a few of them and we tried to touch on all of them, but Hideki and Bryson just keep popping up. Okay. How can I put this? Is Bryson the best play? 5% Bryson?
Yeah, I'm not sure. One thing I'll say is we'll kind of get into course fit here, but the course fit is not good for him because in typical US Opens, you see a massive boost in the predictive value of driving distance and driving accuracy. You don't see either here at Shinnecock. You made the point earlier that like you're looking more at how guys have done in the Open Championship. I couldn't agree more with that assessment. Like this is not a typical US Open because driving is diminished, not really accentuated in every single way. But we get a massive boost in iron plays predictive value. We get a big boost in putting. So at least Bryson has the putting, but he doesn't have the iron play, and I think that's probably going to keep him from contending, or at least being one of the best options up top.
Well, doesn't Bryson fit that? Isn't he the very high end version of that player that I talked about earlier? Be it Cam Young, Wyndham Clark, Burns, McIntyre. That the driving's there, the putting's there. If he just is neutral with his irons, he's generally quite competitive.
Yes, but the reason for that is because usually if he gains like half a stroke with the approach per round, he's going to be near the top in tee to green because his off the tee is so dominant. But it's going to be really, really hard for him to gain anywhere near as many strokes as he typically does on a golf course here at Shinnecock. Because for one thing, like I think a lot of the holes are going to take driver out of his hand, and if he tries to push driver, these fairways are at such an angle where, like if you're avoiding bunkers down the right and you hit it far enough left to avoid them, well now you're running through the fairway, and he's also one of those guys where. Like I think the players who are going to be able to take driver and push it are the ones who are going to be able to shape the ball off the tee with the fairway in whatever way the fairway demands. He doesn't do that. He just hits his big, swinging draw over and over and over again. So any left to right, like offset fairway, he's going to have no chance of holding driver. And I think he'll therefore have to just hit a long iron and now put everything on his actual approach play into the greens. And that's not usually where he succeeds.
It's not, but Tambo, this used to be what Bryson did well. Like I remember a Players Championship where he pulled out driver 8 times and just hit irons off every tee and came in second.
Yeah, lots of changes in Bryson's game and body and time and everything over the years. But I will say, like, what you're pointing out, not to flip it completely, but just to note it, is like your point was, and you even brought up the name in the same conversation of Cam Young, is like your some of your argument is for Bryson the player, some of it is for Bryson and the ownership with building lineups here, and it's like that makes him one of the best plays. It's like Cam Young still has to get just as squeezed and might actually be a better play anyway, and he just can't get played really as much because people are going to be going up or going to Xander or Fleetwood or down to the other guys. So like Cam Young could be just as squeezed. Rory is a really good play up there from Bryson, only $1,200 more. Still gets you almost the identical lineup. You're talking about $1,200 down below, where there's a ton of options between those ranges of price points. So will he be lower owned, and could that make him better for that reason? Possibly. But I'm saying I think like Cam Young would fit what you're saying even better. And then if you really want to go up from there, and that saves you money, if you want to go up, then I think you have more like Rory, who's going to be a Scotty or drop down spot. So those guys could be much better at still really low ownership versus those around them.
We do this all the time, Tambo. Jared, bring it up on the screen right now. I'm about to blow your mind. You ready for this, Tambo?
Here we go.
Bryson and Cam Young.
Right. Yeah. And you still have 7,100 left. But I think here is where you have to think about, Pat. Now, I know it's hard to get them all right at the exact same time, but it's something else about like not just filling it out with maybe your best plays, if you will. Why we always not who you play, it's how you play them. Now start filling it out with what you think, and looks like you're doing it already. Like Kitayama, Goddard, like what are the guys that fit this? It's hard to get them all right at the same time, but if the course plays this way, and you end up getting that result to work out in your favor because of that, it's almost like picking a win split that goes your way, and it just happens to happen based on, the set of lineups or the one version of the lineup that you built.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Is like if you're starting Bryson Cam Young, essentially what you're saying is we're wrong about driving not mattering as much as Shinnecock, and the changes they made to the golf course, or maybe maybe the fescue isn't as penal as we expect it to be. And they kind of learn that, and they say, okay, well, I'm just going to come out of the fescue from 60 yards instead of laying back and hitting an approach shot from the middle of the fairway at 180. And maybe they control it that way really well. And so then you want to build the rest of the lineup kind of with the same types of players who can really gain an advantage off the tee. So as Tambo said, like Kitayama, Goddard, that kind of crew really go well with this start.
Well, you could do all of that, and then we can throw in, well, what do you guys make of Cam? Because if you go Bryson, Cam Young, you're starting to talk yourself into typical U.S. Open style players. Those guys have both been very good. Goddard would most definitely be on that list as well, as someone who has the skills and performed really well at his U.S. Open last year. Bobby Mack is obviously on that list. Burns, you could probably chuck on that list too now at this point. Then you're down at 56, and that does you no good. But the other guys, who else, just in your mind, Blickle, for classic U.S. Open style players, like Woodland would probably be on that list?
Yeah, I think Woodland, Nikolai Højgaard, if we're going with this driving angle, work really well. We already have Goddard up in there.
Bryson, Cam Young, Woodland, Nikolai, Goddard, McIntyre.
Yeah, this is awesome. I think you could also take, this wouldn't be a bad spot to take McIntyre out, leave 500 on the table, and go Kitayama or Adam Scott or Minwoo Lee, something like that. And you're just kind of going all in on this idea of guys who are both long and straight off the tee might gain a much larger advantage than what the field is is predicting.
I mean, yeah, or you can just even drop Nikolai and just go to Bobby Mack because his driving has been awesome. So I don't have any problems with putting him in. You could put in Min Woo in that circumstance too, Tambo. There was a name that obviously does not fit this build at all, but it is Cam Smith, who I think is sneakily has gotten a lot better since he's been powered by Claude. All of a sudden, he's not driving the ball out of bounds every single time. And he's someone who's played really well at windy, hard courses over the years.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, if you do that, it's fine. I think what you had up before, like I like better, but I'll just say that the point that Alex made was the main thing at the bottom when you're filling it out with like the other guys. I'm fine even if you're leaving money at that point. I just wanted to add that because I think it's important. If you know, in something like this as well, if you're using an optimizer, it's going to do that anyway in some cases. And that's where some people can't comprehend that. I know the hand builders will be like, oh, I got to spend every dollar. I got to look at what's my upgrade, what's that. But if you're building these lineups where you're building to a skill set, it is fine just to say, you know what? I'm looking for the 7K guy. I can't find the one I like. I already have Bobby Mack. I need to just find someone at 6,900. Well, you don't always have to do that. If you really like the guy at 67 or 65, you can just drop down and leave the money there. So I think that was a key point as well.
If we look at go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Cam is a very similar decision to Corey Connors, I think, where like you're essentially saying, am I trusting who this player has shown me that he is over the last 5 years? Now, the difference is like in his last two events, he's actually looked pretty good, or last three for Cam Smith, and Connors has looked awful in his last two. But you're the reason you'd be playing him just like Corey Connors is because over the last 3 years, you know, he's been really good in windy conditions. You know, he's been really good at difficult conditions, and you're just trusting, you know, the full body of work for the player and not the last 6 months or so.
So if we take a look at Cam Smith, obviously it's a lot of cuts in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 consecutive cuts missed in major championships. All of a sudden he switches coaches and boom, pops back up with a T7 at the PGA Championship. Driver, not great because it's never great. The approach was back. Obviously, the chipping was still good and an elite level all-time putter. And if we try to go to his live type stuff, he's T5 at probably the most difficult course on the live rotation at Valderrama. Ends up, T5 there under par again. That I think that things are pointing back up for Cam Smith. I would rather be ahead of the game, Alex, on Cam Smith and risk it on him rather than wait until the Open Championship's like, man, he was top 10 at the PGA Championship. Hell, he was T4 at the U.S. Open. Now we got to bet him at the Open Championship. It'll be like terrible or something like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement here. I think the biggest question that I have remaining with Cam Smith is, do I want to bet him outright or do I want to play him in DFS? Because I think there's an argument to be made that he's just a better outright because the floor is still so bad with him. But I haven't come to any like final decisions with him. And I will say, like, regardless, either one, I'm going to have to be going against the models because the projection models just can't stand him because of how bad he's been for the last few years. And he's kind of overwritten all of his, good data at this point. And so this is really a, yeah, but I think that he's an exception because Liv just kind of took his motivation and now he seems to have it back. He wanted a new coach. He wanted to start competing again and actually enjoying the golf tournaments that he's playing. And one of the ways to do that is to actually contend again.
What do you make of a decision like that, Tambo? Is that just a cross off for you? It's like he's just been too bad? Or do you see that this was a guy that 2 years ago would have been $9,700? There is an explainable reason for why he's down here and hasn't performed well, that maybe he is back on the upswing now.
Is that 2 years ago though? I feel like it's like, are we talking about like 3 or 4 years ago now? Like, I don't even know at this point what the timeline is.
It's 2026. I mean, on my birthday, Masters 2024, dude was T6 at the Masters.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
T4, fourth at the U.S. Open, 33rd at the Open, 9th at the PGA Championship. This was all 2.5 years ago. Then he goes to Live, and he's just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I think Tambo's point, he went to Live in 2022.
Did he go in 2020? Liv has been around since 2022.
Mm-hmm.
All I was going to say to add that on was that it's like what I just said earlier. So you're not talking about both sides of your mouth. It's like I do like playing who the player is and could be. So Pat, if that's the one you want to get ahead of, I get it. But I'm saying I already have Connors at $400 less that fits that narrative and fits the model and fits everything else that I would say. So it's like I already have probably 10 options like that down in that range anyway that would still be ahead of Cam Smith for me. And so to Alex's point, if anything, I would be betting like the the outright with the T8 or something like that. And if you want to get involved that way and hope that, or if I'm building a lineup, Pat, I would go to your theory around what about what was the year, like Cam Young, Rory, who was it? Lowry, you could build like that open style lineup and still have all the money left over. I don't even know who else you would put into that, but if it was like
Rory, Victor, Cam, and Cam.
Yeah, Victor was up there. I found one just now and you could do Sepp, or would you do Sepp or Bobby Mack? Probably Bobby Mack, right?
Yes, I think that, although, listen, I've lost a lot of money on Straka this year, but a lot of that has to do with his chipping and putting, which in these weird circumstances could just break even or do whatever. I do trust I trust his irons far more than I trust Bobby Mack's irons.
Right. So if you put you put in Hovland there, how much is he this week?
81. He's a weird price. He's in that like Rose. Like I think Goddard's gonna win. So I'm more than likely gonna play Goddard. I've also bet on Henley. So I prefer Goddard, Henley, and Reed over Hovland of that range.
Yeah, I was trying to see. We do run out of money quick there though. Like you don't have as much left with Rory, Cam, and you drop it down. You'd probably have to get rid of Hovland, to be honest, and just go down to something else. But yeah, like what you're throwing up there now, like Fitz, Straka, wherever you land after that point, I think if it ends up being somebody else that you think fits that model of what we're talking about, I guess that's my point, is that's how I would rather build something like this. I'm not sure if it would it be Rye over McNeely maybe, or Smalley?
Yeah, it probably would be Rye, wouldn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, let's go to Rye. So Rory, Alex Fitzpatrick, another guy who I bet on this week, Cam Young, Cam Smith, Seb Straka, Aaron Rye, this sort of lineup. I find it funny that you mentioned that the predictive nature of putting, Blickle, is going to be more enhanced, or at least that's what you saw from the 4 rounds in 2018, that wouldn't help out Cam Smith.
Oh, it absolutely does. Yeah. I think so. Essentially, like what we see in US Opens is every single year, putting has been more predictive than usual. And the reason for that is quite simple. It's just you get a lot of putts in that like 4 to 10 foot range because there are fewer and fewer tap-ins for par and there are fewer tap-ins for birdie, and you're just left with tester after tester, and you have to make those putts, and you can't luck your way through those putts the way you can in a regular event, because in a regular event you might only get like 8 of those in the week, and here you're going to get 20 of those or 25 of those throughout the week, and so you have to actually be good at those putts to make all of them. And so yeah, I think he really benefits from that. And he's also one of those guys where like, you're going to see some guys in situations around the green this week where 90% of the field can't get the ball within 10 feet. And Cam Smith is going to be able to somehow get the ball within 6 feet because he's just that much of a magician around the greens. And so as long as we're right about driving not mattering as much as usual at Shinnecock as opposed to most US Opens, then Cam Smith is really, really live.
So I've readjusted this lineup to make it the Open Championship St. Andrews type course / what I mentioned earlier with PGA National. Unfortunately, I had to take Seb Straka out, but it now looks like Rory, Cam Young, Noren, Cam Smith, Henley, and Chris Kirk.
All right, let me see this.
I'm in. Yeah, I like it.
So you have Cam Young and Rory with 4 of basically the same, different levels of the same type of player.
Yeah, and here's where it like really depends on kind of Rory and Cam showing that they are more than just, dominant off the tee. Especially Rory, like he's become such a ridiculously well-rounded player. Cam, we still see the spikes there, but you could rely on Cam's putter in this lineup, right? Like he now fits a putting specialist lineup, which is so different than what we thought he would be 2 years ago, or even like a year and a half ago. I like this lineup, even though it does deviate from the, really driver-centric kind of model that you would kind of expect to go to after a Rory and Cam start.
If we try to project out ownership, especially from the top end, Tambo, what do you think that we're looking at here this week? All the ownership projections will be loaded into the rabbit hole on Tuesday evening, but we're trying to get out ahead of this just based on first impressions. I just don't see how anyone plays Bryson. I can see how people play Cam Young. I think he will get squeezed, but it'll be like Scheffler, tier 1. I think Xander will be tier 2. Then you'll have Rory, Rahm, and Cam Young all kind of around the same. Maybe Rory and Cam Young a little bit higher than Rahm, but then you just have Bryson sitting there being like, yeah, no one's playing this guy. No one's playing Brooks either with this injury.
Yeah, for sure. That's the setup, but that probably makes sense. I think you had it pegged pretty well, but I do think there's a world where Xander or Fitz become the most popular just because they fit more styles of lineup. Like you could start with Xander, you could put him in second. You could start with Xander Fitz as a combo and put that out there. So it's like I think those guys have the ability to pop up even further. Scotty will be higher because we saw how easy those lineups are to build. I think Rory gets some as usual, but still could be, him and Rom can go a little bit overlooked there, but obviously Bryson, Cam Young, Brooks will be the three lowest in the 9K and above range.
What do you make of it, Blickle? Because I mean, with Brooks with this injury, he says that he's going to play. It sounds like a UCL injury, which sounds awful.
Yeah, I'm not really interested in Brooks, and I think the field will feel the same way. I think the guy in this range who might end up even the highest is actually Oberg at 92. But I'm kind of with.
Well, hold
Tambo.
on. You think that he's going to be the highest owned?
I think there's a very real chance that Oberg's the highest owned player. Yeah,
I don't see in a world how he could be more popular than Fitzpatrick.
Just because he's been better than Fitz over the last 2 months.
Has he?
Yeah. He's certainly been more consistent.
Fitz has won 3 times and come in second.
Not in the last 2 months.
I guess in the last 3 months. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so Fitzpatrick went 52nd, 14th, 36th before his second place finish in Canada. I mean, Oberg, like for as much as I make fun of him, like he's been really good on the leaderboards going back to API, 3rd, 5th, 21st, 4th, 8th, 4th, then 17th and 39th. So it has faded a little bit, but I mean, that was a lot of really, really good finishes in a row, which is why he's kind of surged in ownership throughout the season. But he's only 9,200. So I think that's going to be a popular combination. For one thing, is like we're going to see a lot of lineups have Oberg and Fitzpatrick. I think they'll both be paired quite frequently with Schauffele and Tommy, as Tambo said. And then I also think Rahm is going to be very, very popular at 11.5 this week.
The weather here, it's great. And we've been actually spending time outdoors again. Before, the backyard, basically a patch of grass, maybe some mud, and a place that the kids just run through. Now it's somewhere we actually hang out. We grabbed a few outdoor pieces from WAYFAIR, completely changed the space. The best purchase? Easily the patio seating set. It's one of those things that you don't realize you're missing until you got it. Now we're eating outside, having coffee for breakfast outside, and actually using the backyard every single day. And if you've never shopped with WAYFAIR before, I'd tell you it's the easiest place to start because that'd be true. Whether you're looking for outdoor seating, grills, patio decor, lighting, storage, it's basically a one-stop shop for getting your outdoor space ready for summer. Plus, with over 20 million 5-star reviews, you can see what real customers think before you buy. Patio season is here, and these deals won't last long. Head to wayfair.com/m/outdoor right now to get your outdoor space ready for way less. That's WAYFAIR.com. You know what's annoying? Thinking you got your finances lined up, then some random thing pops up and throws everything off. That's why I've been checking out Cash App. It's not just for sending money anymore. Cash App does more than you think when it comes to having your back and making sure your money stays your money. Cash App just released a new status program for the way people actually spend called Cash App Green. Now, when you spend at least $500 a month with a Cash App card, you earn green status, which unlocks benefits like up to $200 of free overdraft coverage. If you overdraft unexpectedly, there are no hidden fees. You also unlock higher borrowing limits and custom personalized cashback offers every Friday at places you love to shop. Turn everyday spending into status with Cash App Green. Download Cash App today or visit cash.app to learn more about this and other financial benefits. New Cash App customers can earn $10 if they use code CASHAPP10 in their profile at sign up and send $5 to a friend within 14 days. Terms apply. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank. Member FDIC. Cash App Visa debit flex cards issued by Sutton Bank. Member FDIC and the Bancorp Bank N.A. Pursuant to a license from Visa USA Inc. See terms and conditions for the Sutton prepaid card, Sutton debit flex card, and Bancorp debit flex card. Cash App Green features savings, direct deposit, roundups, overdraft coverage, and discounts provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures. Let's talk about something no one in endurance sports likes to admit. You can be training your ass off, cardio, stress, not recovering properly, and yeah, it can mess with your performance everywhere because it all comes back to blood flow. Most guys jump straight to pills. That's just treating the symptom. The real key is nitric oxide. That's what controls circulation, endurance, and performance. That's why Joy Mode actually makes sense. It's a natural booster that supports nitric oxide production, not the fake pixie dust stuff. Just tear open a packet, mix it like an electrolyte drink, and you are good to go. Use it when you need it, or use it daily to raise your baseline. Think of it like training. One dose helps, consistency changes everything. If you want to support sexual performance the same way you support training and recovery, naturally and intelligently, Joy Mode has a deal for my listeners. Go to tryjoymode.com/Mayo or enter Mayo at checkout for 20% off. Joy Mode, the electrolyte packet for your dick. 9K range has been gutted. There's 1, 2, 3 guys in the 9K range, and one of them feels like a dead fish with Brooks because of this injury. Maybe that's not going to end up being the case, and he repeats. Who knows? But Tambo, how comfortable would you be, because this is a U.S. Open, probably the major that we've seen the most random names kind of pop up? Everyone associates that with the Open Championship, but that has not been the case over the past 5 years or so. We've seen a lot of random dudes pop up at the top of U.S. Opens. Could you start your lineups with Fitz?
Oh man, yeah, like you definitely can do a balanced build at US Opens, but this is one where the way they did the pricing. So I had a note in my phone that I've had for 8+ years, whatever it's been, long time playing DFS, that says like obviously at US Opens, balanced lineups sometimes are the key. You got to go back to what was the one that Woodland won? What
Pebble.
year was that? Pebble.
Yeah.
And if you remember, at the time Brooks was on his major tear, and so Brooks was I'll date myself here, but the Scotty pricing. Now, it wasn't 14-9, I can promise you that, but back then, Brooks was the heavy, and they were battling down the stretch. There was like still no Brooks lineups in sight if Brooks had even went on to win, because you couldn't get the rest of the bottom of the board right, and it was the balanced lineups. And it's because you had so many US AMs and some of the older stuff and like newer players and all that get in, so you just couldn't really build good lineups with that. This is the complete opposite. Like you said, basically 2 guys, because people are writing off Brooks in the 9K, 20 or less in the 7 to 8K, and everybody in the 6s. So even though this is why it's kind of like a false boost to Scotty's price. They needed to do that. If they didn't, it would have been even worse. And that was the thing last year, Pat. We talked about this pre-show, but Scotty last year was 13 or 13.5 with this type of pricing. Now you know why Scotty was popping up way more last year than he was this year. But the 14.9 is still kind of falsified when you see that there's this many guys in the 6K range, and we didn't even have to get to the 5K if we didn't want to. So that proves it.
Fitz is the number 4 player in the world, Blickle. 3 wins, 2 second-place finishes in his past 7 starts. He's $8,900. I think you could lead a U.S. Open team with him.
You absolutely can. Yeah. The weird thing, though, is like if you start with Fitz, are you just using every single guy right below him? Because otherwise, how are you going to use all the salary?
Well, that's I guess that ends up becoming the issue, but you can just build a lineup of. I love this 8K range. Like independently, I like all of these 8K guys. Why not throw them all together?
It's very fair. Yeah. So the biggest concern that I have here is just if I'm building this type of lineup, I'm concerned that there's going to be someone else with the same starting point idea that I had. And then there just aren't enough guys in the 8K range to make sure that I'm different enough there. So it's tough in that regard, but it might be a unique enough decision to just say, I'm going to start with Fitzpatrick, that you don't have to worry about that. Yeah. And once we get ownership, I think we'll have a better sense of that too. Cause we might see that, this entire 8K range is going overlooked. And then, by all means, you can just play them all together. So definitely like the idea. And I also think like, if you feel really like this strongly about Fitzpatrick, it's not a terrible idea to play him and just make him the second guy in either. And, there's still going to be plenty of really contrarian lineups that you can build that way as well.
Oh, for sure. I just wanted to get to the point that I think that you could build lineups this way. And although there are a few options, Tambo, I don't think that people are going to do this.
So it's twofold here, Pat, actually. And, leaning on the side that Alex mentioned there can you build lineups like this? Yes. Should you? Probably not. And here's why. It's just, again, depends on the field size. The smaller the field, the more likely you are to be able to get away with this. When you play the $25 Millie Maker, to Alex's point, yes, you can get a couple guys different in here, but I can tell you right now from just early projections, if you started with Fitz and built a lineup, at least 2 of Goddard, Morikawa, Henley, Hatton, and Matsuyama, like you have on the screen, will be in there. Maybe 3 of those guys, to be honest. And so you've really only got a 2v2 in a very narrow window. And people say, yeah, but not many are doing it. Well, even if it's the smallest percentage of a field that large, it's still a giant pool of lineups that you're just 2v2ing up against. So I'd want to do it in a different way, whether it's, leaving $1,000 on the table and just saying that's the type of week it is. And again, not something I want to do, but it's just, that's why that becomes really tricky and a bit of a balancing act. And you won't see it pop up a lot because there's other ways to do it, Pat, where you just make Fitz your second guy in, but then you do like your Bryson piece, Bryson, Fitz, and now still do your couple of 8. I know you like Goddard, and I know we've mentioned Henley a bit. I'm just using a quick example. And so you got Bryson, Fitz, Goddard, Henley. You're still doing the 8K thing, but you're doing it in a bit of a different way. And now it kind of lands you in that 7K flat range where you could play another chalk piece like CU or Cantlay, or you could just say, I'm going to play whoever you liked there. I don't know if it was like, if you want to go the Lowry route with McNeely or Smalley or something like that, and you do it that way. It's just an example, though, where it's, again, this is way different than a Fitzpatrick with 5 other 8K guys or 4 8K guys and a 7K guy, and it keeps you out of that corner. You're not as boxed in, if you will.
So what about this then? What I put up on the screen, Blickle, you go Xander, Fitz, Hatton, Goddard, Straka, Lowry.
Yeah, I love this lineup. This is really, really strong.
Could you make it even more impactful by dropping the Straka or Lowry spot down low and getting up to someone like a Reed?
I would say wait for ownership projections on that decision, because that's that's where you're getting at. Okay, well, which of these guys can be like a true separator? And I mean, if Straka's low owned, like he can be that guy. If he's not low owned, and Patrick Reed is, now I would prefer the Reed route for sure.
So let's see. Is there anyone at 62? I mean, I kind of keep.
I
keep coming back.
Mitchell there.
I'm not playing Keith Mitchell at a U.S. Open. Just not doing it. The guy can barely do the.
Play Chris Kirk.
I will play. You want to see something funny? And I've been going through this. I know this may not be the end all be all. Good week in Canada, despite a missed cut. When you take a look at what he was up to, he gained almost 2 strokes per round tee to green, all with the driver in on approach. Lost over 2 strokes per day with his putter. The putter's been absolutely frigid. I mean, there's a reason he's $6,000, but we've seen him pop up. PGA Championship, heater rounds, almost 5 strokes gained on approach. Byron Nelson, great ball striking. The Players Championship, a lot on approach. PGA National, a lot on approach. A signature event, didn't do anything else at Pebble, but gained a bunch on approach. So he has that part to him. But what I thought was interesting was his U.S. Open performance over the years. He's been weirdly good at the U.S. Open the past 2 years, and just if putting really does come down to it for whatever reason, that the way that the USGA sets up these greens, Blickle, he has kind of figured them out.
I hope you're right, and that he's not 6 over through 6 with 4 3-putts already.
Yeah, sometimes that. Listen, who else are you going to take down? Well, you want Keith Mitchell. That's a certainty with Keith Mitchell.
No. I don't want Keith Mitchell, but if you're asking me for a 6,200 guy, I'll give you Keith.
Is there the other guy that the 2 others I would consider from down here? Well, I guess it depends on which route that you want to take, Tambo. I think that Michael Kim with his chipping and putting could end up being pretty good here. Harmon would be another one that you could throw into that bucket, but Kiefer and Yella Miraju are both here as well. Yella Miraju obviously bounced back in a big way at the Canadian Open, but Kiefer, again, the ball striking has been so amazing that if you play under the pretense that chipping and putting are just weird this week and bad guys can figure it out, he's kind of perfect.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. We watched him a lot last week, just keeping up with it. But I would think the interesting part was when you landed there is, we had talked about all the wind and the difficulty and then the, sample sizes and the rounds. Harry Hall had 100-something rounds just going off. And he did it again last week. And I know it wasn't the best finish overall, but from a results perspective, but I'm saying playing in the wind, he seemed to play just fine in those windy rounds. So if you put a guy like Harry Hall in there, you've got, to me, when you've got Xander, Goddard, Fitz, Hatton, Hatton and Reed, you could say are a bit outliers, but not really. And so it's to me, yes, if Hall does anything, that lineup could be in good shape the way the rest of it's built out. So I don't mind those types of lineups versus saying, okay, 6 guys of all the same thing where I'm going to need the perfect week from all of them. Here you probably get, 3 or 4 good weeks you're expecting, and then a couple outliers, but that's kind of what you need in something like the $25 Millie Maker, and then Harry Hall to close it out. Yeah, he needs to do something, but I think that's fine.
Anything else you guys want to talk about? Because there's a few players on the in this pricing that we just kind of completely overlook. So I want to run down a few of them, get your quick thoughts. Rose and Justin Thomas.
Love Rose.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say that they're going to go overlooked. And again, those would be, I'm not just thinking about the 8K build where you stack them all together because that fits to your Fitz one earlier. It would go with it. But I think using someone like Xander, who's going to be super popular, and then you drop down to those two and seeing what fits around it, that's where you get completely different in a lineup while being popular with Xander.
One of the first things we did in that chalk lineup was insert Wyndham Clark and Sam Burns. Do you have interest in these players this week? Because I don't.
I have interest in Wyndham, not so much Burns. It's tough though because especially with Burns, he's been doing everything that we're looking for from a player this week, and actually these are very similar plays because as you mentioned, these are two guys who, when they're going well, it's largely because the approach play is going well, and when they're not, it's because the approach play is struggling. Well, right now they're in very good approach form, and Wyndham has gotten the putter back, so right now they both do the putting that we need. Like as we talked about, the two things that carry over every single U.S. Open and carried over back in 2018 were approach play and putting. And so we, from one U.S. Open to the next, we have basically no idea what we're going to get from around the green. Sometimes it's extremely predictive. Sometimes it's not predictive at all. We have seen in the past at Shinnecock that we're probably not going to get the same driving signal that we usually do, but approach play and putting are there, and these guys do both of those really, really well, at least right now. And so I think I am in on both, but I'm particularly in on Wyndham.
There is a bit of rain in the forecast, at least for right now, on Thursday, Tambo. And as we've seen with Sam Burns, when it's a bit moist out, the guy melts. He's the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah, that makes sense. Think of the last name Burns, but the setup of, I think if you go to what Alex just said, if you're comparing the two, it's interesting to me that we've got Wyndham. Looks like he's turned it around. Not just think about what we said earlier. Is it the player who they used to be or who the player they've been recently? He's both. Right? Mm-hmm. That's got to be Wyndham for you. And he's on a tear right now. Yet I actually think Burns will come in a little bit more popular when people are landing there, just the way the build's set up, the current projections leading in and all of that. And I think Clark is pretty interesting coming in off of a win, a third, and an 11th place. Obviously Burns fits that as well. And you can play both together, but I think the Clark side could be better.
Alex, there's one thing that all of the Shinnecock winners going back to 1986 have in common. They both have top 10 finishes at Royal St. George's and at St. Andrews. Do you know that there are 3 players in the field who have done that this week?
Who is Cam Smith one of them?
He is not. Brooks Koepka is one of them.
Okay. I don't remember the Royal St. George's week off the top of my head.
Dustin Johnson and Jordan Spieth are the other two.
What do you think of DJ? Because I can talk a lot about Spieth, but
DJ, this was only a reason to bring up Spieth.
Okay. Hey man, DJ actually has been playing a lot better in his last few starts, so maybe there is something there. He flashed some signs of the PGA Championship and then had 2 of his best live finishes like in years. In his next 2 events. But yes, yeah,
you know what? We can call this the revenge of the live week. We go Rose, Spieth, DJ, Cam Smith, and then you got 10-6 left. You're rolling now. You probably go Fitz and Rory.
There you go. I like what Spieth has said about his game. It's in part because he said like exactly what I've said about his game, where he mentioned the fact that like every single aspect of his game has been really, really good at times this year. And he's felt like super confident in that part of his game, but he just hasn't felt good enough about multiple things at the same time. And that he feels like he's close to getting it all together at once for the first time. And that's exactly what we see in the data. We've seen massive spikes with the putter, but the driver was off that week. And the next week, the driver, or the next month, the driver's spectacular, but now the approach play isn't good anymore. He's not making as many putts. But literally every single skill set has multiple spikes, the kind of spikes that you need to win a golf tournament. And like we said, he just hasn't put it together. So I think when you're looking at what he's done this year, you see, okay, no top 10s from Spieth, so he hasn't been in form. All the ingredients are there for not just a top 10, but literally a win. And I think the question there is that just random, or is there a mental block and that as soon as he gets close to the lead, something in his game fails? And, at the PGA Championship, it was the putter. Tee to green, he was phenomenal, and he just needed to make some putts. But if he made putts, he would have been in contention. So he missed putts because there's a mental block there or something like that. So if you think there's a mental block, you continue to stay away. If you think it's just been random and that there really is a chance that they all come together at once, then you play him.
Are you a Spieth guy, Tambo?
I'm interested, but I think the DJ one was more interesting. I think 6,300, he's actually popping at least a little bit early on. And again, he still fits just that pile of guys that I'd rather play in the 6K range that everybody's going to do versus trying to figure it out down in the 5K. And the other thing I saw too, and I know it's not the same, but just talking about DJ on bumpy greens. The guy can putt on those things. We got, rocks and shells and you name it out there on these greens. So maybe there's something to that as well. But, DJ at 6,300, not like anybody's going there anyway. So if you landed on him, I'd be just fine. I think Spieth obviously is, a great option up above when you're mixing in, but that 7K range is so small to start with. And you got Spieth, Lowry, Siwoo, all that. But Spieth could end up being a really good pivot off of Siwoo and Cantlay, who are both right there.
Lowry will probably pick up steam too, but what you're saying is that Dustin has big bump experience.
He definitely does. Yes, in more ways than one, as we know.
Other guys. So let's just talk about the 6K range before we get out of here to try to identify the ones that we like the best. I like, Smalley, English. I think Day is super interesting. I'm just not going to get there. We have not mentioned Fowler yet. I like Fowler this week as a rebound off what he's been doing the past few starts. That's okay with me. Love Alex Fitzpatrick. Love Kitayama. I bet both those guys to win. But then we see Connors here, who we've spoken through like almost the entire show of can he get back to what he's doing? I would throw Keegan Bradley in that same mix that he just hasn't done anything, but stylistically fits really well. Fox and Noren, Jackson Koivin, Harry Howell, who you guys kind of made a case for, and I will be going to Chris Kirk as well.
I like a lot of those guys. I think where I have the most overlap is Fox, Connors, Keegan. Keegan to me is a very similar play as Corey Connors, but I think there's more form with Keegan that I can kind of get behind. So he might be a higher confidence play. The one we haven't mentioned yet that I love in this range is Adam Scott at 66.
Why do you like Adam Scott so much?
Good splits in wind, good splits on difficult golf courses. He's done a lot of things really, really well this year. The weird part with his game is like the putter has become so good and reliable for him over the last few years, but it's the thing that really has kind of held him back a little bit this year. I like that he finally kind of pieced it together and had a really good putting week at the Memorial, and the approach play this season has been awesome. We've talked about like what a great approach year it's been for Wyndham Clark, but Adam Scott has been right there with Wyndham in terms of just like the most improved iron player on tour this year compared to last. I mean, he's been spectacular with the irons every single week except for the PGA Championship, and then was really good again at the Memorial. I like everything about Adam Scott's game right now. Really, it's just like I don't quite understand why he's going to be as overlooked as he will be at this price.
Minimum rounds. Let's set that to 16. For right now and go to the best approach players on tour over the past 5 months. Tambo, Alex Fitzpatrick, Morikawa, Matt Fitzpatrick, Adam Scott, JJ Spawn.
Yeah, looks pretty good there. Rory keeps popping. I mean, again, it sounds silly to say, but like obviously Scotty's at the top of most lists. And I just think that's where people end up going to him or Xander. So Rory fitting into that just makes sense to me there because you can almost build that lineup with Rory, I assume, and kind of land on all of it, right? What's that look like?
Let's see. Rory, Fitz, Spawn. Who are the other guys? Scott and Morikawa. See if that fits. Scott. Now we're $300 short for Morikawa.
Where was Siwoo on that list?
Siwoo is down.
Right
He's ninth. Gerard is there as well. Ludwig.
Man, check this one. You got Rory, and then you go Fitz, Morikawa, and then you go Siwoo, Scott, other Fitz.
No, yeah, you just drop Spawn to Siwoo.
Yeah, Spawn's not winning another U.S. Open. Get out of here. Come on.
You would have said that about one U.S. Open.
No, I'm kidding. I know. Yeah, exactly. So These major winners lately, anything can happen, but maybe it'll be somebody else here. But I think this is like just another prime example of like where the Rory lineups just different. Even, oh yeah, Fitzpatrick will be popular. See, Woo, you're playing that chalk. Like all this stuff, sure. But like, will it be built like this? No. And I love Alex's call on Adam Scott. If you go back to, I don't know if you still have it up there, Pat, his recent form. This is just the story of Adam Scott. He sucks, man. This guy always comes 21st and 24th. He never comes top 10. He only plays in the best fields. The guy's the international man of mystery. He hops on the private jet. You never hear another peep about his life. He's got some mysterious picture he posted, like him looking off into the distance, like Justin Rose doing his commercials and stuff back in the day. And it's like, you never know anything about him. And he just pops up and finishes top 30 in all the best tournaments in the world still to this day. It's like, at 6,600, that's built into the price. Who cares? A top 20 will be just fine for you.
All right. That will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. You guys will be doing Leverage Lane on the Ship It Nation YouTube channel on Wednesday. What time is that going live?
It's going to be tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. And if I could, Pat, just for 2 seconds, I'd like to talk about the big guy event for a second.
Totally forgot about that. Yes, I should have led with this. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries at all. As many know, like that, James, Degenerate 75, we lost him. His battle to cancer last year. It was a really sort of tough battle, but he's shown the way, gutted it through. But we wanted to host a DFS community event. So this is not a Ship It Nation thing. This is for everybody in the entire DFS community. I sent an email out about it yesterday. I will post it on my X at Toe Tag and Tambo today, but we used the GoFundMe money. We used a lot of money beyond that we put in so that we could get a really cool event. It's going to be held August 21st, Friday in Las Vegas at the D, which is the sister hotel to Circa. Circa helped us with some of this stuff, and appreciate everybody over there that helped us out, put this together, but it's going to be 7:30 to 10:30 p.m. on the 12th floor in the Detroit Ballroom. You can go to, it is on the Ship It Nation site, but shipitnation.com/the-big-guy-event. But just hit me up and I'm going to post it on my X. But you got to save a seat and get in. You get drink tickets, appetizers, things like that. But it's going to be a fun event. Everyone is welcome. We're going to be down there getting our Circa Survivor entries in and whatnot. But I wanted to speak about that a lot more than anything else we got going on. But you can check out our shows and stuff this week as well. But really, really happy that we could put that event on for James, his family, the community, and everybody involved. So thanks to all that helped out.
I'll be continuing to promote that as well. I'll include it in the newsletter, a link back to the post and email that Tambo sent out. I'm thinking about going. It's a tough time of year for me, but I would want to go and show my support.
Yeah, would love it. I mean, love to have everybody. It's like I said, it's open to anyone and everyone. But the main thing is, we thought like it's so hard to get an exact time, an exact place, and work it all out where you could get sort of everything that you wanted. Got some fun planned for the event, with the signature drink, his ranch water, and all that type of stuff. So it should be a fun time. But it's like I said, a lot of people want to be out there anyway for their Circa entries and whatever it might be. And it's kind of the lull week before everything else gets crazy, and it's just before football comes back. So it is a tough time, but hopefully as many people as possible can make it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, hit me up direct, shoot me a DM, whatever it might be. We'll get it done.
Alex, FTNFantasy.com. You'll have your ownership projections and everything out over there, along with your leverage scores. Additionally, for me, Rabbit Hole, BetSportsGolf.com. Code US Open. Get it for $1 this week. The stats, the tools, the optimizer. Do your own research. Make your own power rankings. You saw how you can do them to research what you want to know about the US Open or any tournament this week. Again, just $1. Hit that up. Smash a like. Give me your favorite 5K guys down in the comment section. Sub to the channel, and we'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!